Areopagus, according to Acts 17, and said, Men of Athens, I see that in every way you're very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an inscription with this, an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. Now what you worship as unknown, I'm going to proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by hands. Picture the context better now. You can't confine God, the God of the universe, to a temple built by hands. You can't confine God like Vulcan to his temple. Well, maybe you can. But you can't confine the Lord of the universe to a temple. And he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything, because he himself gives all men life and breath and everything else. You just imagine a steady stream of people who would make their way up the Acropolis, taking sacrifices to Athena. I'm not talking about the every 4 years one. I'm talking about the daily sacrifices, because Athena had to be fed. Even though Athena ate very little, the priests and priestesses that served Athena ate the food that was offered and then sold the rest in the butcher shop dedicated to Athena. If you buy the meat from Athena's market, you know it's the very best, because you don't offer bad meat to Athena. You offer only your very best animals to her. If you buy fruit and vegetables at Athena's market, you know it's the very finest. So imagine that steady stream, people making their way up to the Acropolis bearing gifts. They leave them to the priests and priestesses who offer them to Athena, and then eat them themselves and sell the leftovers. But God is not served like he needs anything, because he himself gives all men life, breath, and everything else. From one man he made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined the time set for them in the exact places where they should live. Now, the relevance there is a little harder to get, but when you realize that in ancient times people thought the gods were very territorial. So, of course, you worship Athena here in Athens. Of course, you worship Artemis in Ephesus. And that's okay. Artemis doesn't mind when you come to Athens if you worship Athena. But God is actually the God of every place. All the territory on earth belongs to him. He is the one who determined where everyone should live. Verse 27, God did this so that men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he's not far from each one of us. So if you're an ancient Greek, you think he lives on Mount Olympus, that way. Zeus, and that is far away. But God, the God of the universe, is not, in fact, far from us. For in him we live and move and have our being. In fact, he's quoting someone. That ought to be in quotation marks. In him we live and move and have our being. He's quoting the ancient Cretan wise man, Epimenides, from a poem Epimenides wrote about Zeus. The people of Crete decided that Zeus was dead, so they had a funeral for him. Epimenides wrote a poem in response and said, "You idiots, he's not dead, because it's in him we live and move and have our being." When Paul quotes that poem, he obviously knows the story that is the backdrop of this event and the inscription of the unknown God. He quotes from the hero of that story, Epimenides, when he says, "In him we live and move and have our being." As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. It comes from another poet from Cilicia, where Paul's from, Aratus, who also had written that in praise of Zeus. Therefore, since we are God's offspring, he goes on, we should not think that the divine image is like gold or silver or stone. It's not like one of these images that you've made and propped up in your temples. An image made by man's design and skill. In the past, God overlooked such ignorance, but now he commands all men everywhere to repent. For he set a day when he will judge the world with justice by the man he's appointed. He's given proof of this to all men by raising him from the dead. Now he gets to say something about Jesus. It's speaking of Jesus and the resurrection that won him an invitation to come here in the first place. He mentions him again at the end, but it's probably a premature end, because after that, when they heard about the resurrection of the dead, some of them sneered, but others said, "We want to hear you again on this subject." At that, Paul left the council. A few men became followers of Paul and believed. Among them was Dionysius. The first monument built here was the Theater of Dionysius in the 6th century BC. There's a restaurant right over there. We passed, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but it's the restaurant called Dionysian Restaurant. Dionysius becomes the first bishop of the Church of Athens, that first convert. And then a female named Damaris, also a member of the Areopagus, a woman who is a woman, and a number of others, but not that many. And in the next chapter, because of the poor response, he sheds on to Corinth over there, which we'll do on Friday. all that happened here. I don't know about you, but the way it strikes me is for the Apostle Paul to come to here, this place, the center of learning, the most famous university in the world, and to say, you know, you guys have this wrong because you're trying to confine this unknown God to a temple built by human hands. You're trying to buy him off with things that you offer him. You have this territorial notion of the gods, but in fact, it's in him that we live and move and have our being. You can't reproduce him like some image, some human image. And in the past, God overlooked your ignorance, but now he has sent Christ into the world to reveal himself to you more fully and expects to hold all of you accountable based on that revelation. It just strikes me. For a bald-headed, bow-legged, bug-eyed, hook-nosed, unibrow guy to walk here and deliver that speech took some conviction and some courage. Do you have any reaction?